Hi everyone. Today is the day where Israel and Jews all around the world remember the Holocaust. And I want to talk a little bit about the importance of this in the context of Krav Maga, self-defense, as well as my approach to training. Okay, now let me start by saying that to Israelis and to Jews, there is a world of difference between saying World War II and the Holocaust. When we talk about a war or a world war, and they are horrible things, we talk about a political conflict between nations. When we talk about a Holocaust, we talk about something else. We talk about murder and slaughter on a grand scale that is driven by hate, and the aim of that is to literally exterminate a race or people. Two very different things. Before I go on, I want to highlight that while I'm talking about Jews specifically in this video, the Nazis murdered many millions of other people, mostly from other ethnic and minority groups, but that's not directly related to Krav Maga, so I'm not going to talk about that. Now, during the Holocaust, the Nazis murdered 6 million Jews. 6 million Jews, out of which 1.5 million were children. Wrap your head around that for a second. 1.5 million children who are sent to gas camps, who are burnt alive, who are experimented on, who are torn from their parents and forced to watch their parents murdered, or the other way around, for no other reason than belonging to a particular minority or religion. Okay. Obviously, the aim of the Nazis was to exterminate the Jewish population all around the world, and they almost succeeded. So 6 million Jews amounts to approximately 80 or 85% of the Jewish population worldwide at the time. Okay, now it's crucial to understand the gravity of this because that's where Krav Maga comes from. And I want to talk about 3 people today who are really important in developing what is now known as Krav Maga. 2 of them, related to Krav Maga. The third one more relates to my approach to training and my history. First and foremost, one of the Jews who fled Europe to what would become the state of Israel later on. He was the son of a police officer and he competed in boxing and wrestling at a young age. And he started training some of the Jews in his town basic self-defense before fleeing Europe. That man's name is Imi Lichtenfeld, and he is the founder of Krav Maga. Imi's mission was not one of hate or vengeance, quite the opposite. His mission was to develop an effective self-defense system, and his mission statement was literally so that one may walk in peace. Not war, but peace. And this is crucial in understanding how Krav Maga was developed. It wasn't developed to win matches or trophies. It wasn't to prove who is the toughest person. It was designed to deal with an enemy whose mission was no less than the destruction and murder of an entire race of people. So it was designed to allow someone to fight not just for their own life, but for the lives of those around them. The second man I want to talk about was born in South Africa in the 1930s. He grew up facing a lot of anti-Semitic hate, and he also moved around between institutions and foster homes. He grew up to become a judo and full contact karate champion, and moved to Israel in the 60s, and he's known as the godfather of Israeli martial arts, and I'm talking, of course, of the one and only Dr. Dennis Hanover. And I had the privilege to be graded to my second dan in Krav Maga by Dennis's son, Yalon. Dennis's mission was similar to that of Imi's, and he was so powerful that he named his style or system after it. It's called Hisaldut, which in Hebrew literally translates as survival. So it's really important to understand the motivation and intent behind their training and their training methods. It's the ability to survive and to protect yourself and those around you when it counts. The third story I'd like to share with you is a personal one. And for those of you who have trained with me before, that might give you a little bit of an insight into my deranged brain. On my mother's side, both my parents were Holocaust survivors. On my father's side, My grandparents, they weren't Holocaust survivors per se, but they were forced to flee and did end up in the state of Israel. So I'll give you a little bit of a rundown on that. So my grandfather, who's really the biggest inspiration here, his entire family was murdered in Auschwitz, which was the most horrific of the death camps in the Holocaust. He escaped Auschwitz, hid in the forest, joined the partisans, like the freedom fighters. His sister, who had an infant child, was still in Auschwitz. So my grandfather ambushed a Nazi officer in the forest, killed him, stole his uniform and his motorbike, falsified papers, rode back into Auschwitz, and got his sister and her infant out, and then made his way slowly to Israel. Now, that is some crazy shit right there, right? My grandmother is also a Holocaust survivor who lost the majority of their family. On my father's side, it came from Morocco, and they were a very wealthy family in Morocco, but unfortunately had to flee and moved to Israel in the early 50s following the Holocaust. They had 8 kids, so my father, God rest his soul, he passed away many years ago, had 7 brothers and sisters. So we're talking about a family of 10, right? 2 parents and 8 kids who deserted and left a very comfortable lifestyle and moved with literally nothing, zero. Lived in a single shanty while looking for work and a place to live in Israel. Now, I was fortunate enough to grow up after all that had settled already, but the impressions of this have never been lost on me, and my family history is something that I don't talk about very often. I think is crucial to my approach to training, and it's something I think about literally every time I start a Krav Maga class or I step on the mat for sparring or grading or something difficult. What goes through my head is that if my grandfather went through everything he went to save his sister, my grandmother, my dad's family, everything that they went through, what right do I have to quit when things get a little bit hard, whether that's in training or in life? Okay? The answer is simple. I don't have the right to quit. You have to push through. You have to keep going. Now, those of you who've trained with, you know, especially if we're doing a little bit of sparring and I cop a good shot, I get a little bit of the crazy eye. That's exactly what goes through my head at that time. Right? I literally switch on and just go, okay, what right do I have to quit right now just because something hit me hard? I've got no right to quit. And that is the real mission of Krav Maga, okay? So that one may walk in peace. It is a message of peace, not hate or vengeance or war. So that one may walk in peace. And so those things never, ever happen again. Now, I'll tie that to Gendai Krav Maga, which is the system that we practice now. And we talk about being the warrior in the room. And that's exactly the same thing. Being the warrior in the room means that you have the courage and the capability and the ability and the willingness to step up and protect those around you when you see something like that goes on, whether that's bullying or somebody whose rights are being infringed upon or somebody who is in danger. It means that when you're in the room, everybody else in that room is safer because you are there, so that one may walk in peace. So I encourage you to take some time and think about the gravity of this, okay? This is what Krav Maga was founded for and the basis that it was founded on. While there have been many changes to Krav Maga since, some are good and some not so good, it's important to understand where it's come from so we can implement it and train it the way that it was meant to be trained, okay? So I invite you once again to think about all this stuff and challenge you to be the warrior in the room, that person who will not stand by and will not let bad people do bad things, okay? Or